Okay, so we continue with the session about shapes, and this will be the first shape that we create that is something that we would like to have from the beginning. So in this case, I will try to create a heart using the knowledge that we have from previous sessions. And my thought is that I will use a circle, and then I will just distort that circle into a heart shape. So I need to squeeze it a little bit on the top and then squeeze it a little bit on the bottom in a different way to make this heart. So I will start with the length node to create that circle. So I press Shift A, go to Converter, Vector Math, and then I change it to length. And if I connect the UV and I connect the value to the surface, you get this little dot here. So we need, of course, move it to the center here, and that we have learned previously. So Shift A, Converter, Vector Math, change it into a subtract, and change these two to 0.5, and then we need a multiply here. So Shift D, and we change this to multiply, or we can change it to scale, it doesn't matter. Change this to 2. Then we get it in the center here. So we have the length in, looks really nice. However, I would like it to be a little bigger, and then we can use the power node, not to make lines not straight, but in this case to get more contrast out of the image. So pressing Shift A, Converter, Math, and then I use the power here, and then I just increase it, put it to like 2, so we get a little bit more in here. But I would like the heart to be a bit brighter, red for instance, and the background to be darker, black. So then I just inverse it by using a subtract. So copy this one, Shift D, put this in the bottom, and then change this to subtract, and we have our circle. And this is what I will try to make into a heart. But before I try to squeeze this, it's good for you to know the values, because it's not 0 out here, it's negative values, and that is really important when I do some addition and subtract to understand. So I can put in the compare here just so you can see. So if I take the Shift A, Converter, Math, change it into compare, and change the epsilon to a really low number, take the first value in here and take that to the surface, then I can see my circle here, and you can see that 0 is about here, and that is the shape that you could see. But when you go outside, it's negative, and it goes to the negative 0.5. And that we will use when we add the deformation in here, because if I should put in an add here, then we know that if we have a negative number and add that with a negative number, it will still be black here, and that we can use. And I will show you how really soon. So we can just take away this and start with the deformation part. To make that, we need some math. So what I will do is that I will put in a separate XYZ here. So Shift A, then I go to Converter, separate XYZ like this, and then I can just take the scale out here, and now I need to make the left and right side mirror each other. So we get this heart shape half here and the other half here. And to make that happen, we use an absolute. But I normally put an absolute here, but I don't want the top and bottom bit to also be mirrored. I just want the left and right to be mirrored, so I will only put it in the X direction. So I drag it out here and I write absolute. So I put it in here, and I can just take this arrow down so we get a little bit smaller. So now we have the absolute here. And if I now take that and just multiply it with y, what will then happen? Let's see. So I multiply this with the y here and drag it out to my surface here, and I get this. Can I use this to create a heart? Perhaps we can use this control again by pressing Shift A, converter, and select math, and then change this into a compare. So if I have a compare here, just so you can see how it looks, and then I take this in here, and now I change this epsilon to a very small number, so 0.01. Okay, so if I have a positive number like this, then you can see that from 0, then if it's 0, then this is in the center here, and then if I increase this, then you can see that the values up here, they are positive, but nothing happens down here, so that must be negative. So if I just go up, you can see it goes up to 0.91, and in 1 we have these corners here. So you can say that this part here is then something that you could add to our sphere or circle up here, and it would still be black here, but it would, since we have a value that is higher than 0 for the circle in the middle, then it would add some information to that and then squeeze it a bit. And if we go to the negative, it would be the same thing here. It would squeeze things in here in the same pattern or shape as we want. You can really see that you get this heart shape here, but in this case it's a little bit too much, but it will soften out since the circle already have values that goes in this direction. So it will more or less be like a struggle or battle between things that goes in this direction and things that already exist, in this case the circle, that goes out in this direction. So in my thought, it should be almost just to add these two together. We can see how it looks. So I just change this to add, and I put this in here, and we have a heart. So it's really few nodes, and you don't do much, but it still really hurts your brain to think where it should be a positive value and a negative value. And if I, for instance, take away all the negative values here by pressing the clamp here, you can see that this here then comes from this multiplier here, because now we don't have any negative number here, so everything we have down here will be visible. But since everything here that goes outside this range here is negative, then that negative will like erase the information that we add from this, so we then get black outside here. We can make this even better by using these power and square root to bend these lines a little bit more. So by adding a square root right in here, you will see what happens. So Shift D, and then I change this into a square root. You can see that it really changes the pattern here. So now we get these shapes that we saw in the last session, where it almost shaped like a mouth. You could see that when I was playing with the square root of power. So it really looks good, and now it's pushed up a bit since we added this in, but that you can easily change by just changing the Y direction here. So if you put that down a bit, you get this. And then it's just to color it by adding a mix RGB here. So Shift A, color, mix color, put that in here. We can make one of these red. This should be black, I can see that now, and then make this red. And I don't know if you know it, but you can of course make the red higher than 1. So if I put it to 1, you have this, but if you really go high, you get like an emission out of it. So if I put this to 10, then we have a really shiny heart like this. So this is how you create shapes, and of course you need to practice a lot. And I will do some sessions that we do now after this, where I go through different types of shapes and we try to fix them together. And it will be a little bit simpler than this in some parts and perhaps more complicated than others. But just so you get some practice out of how you can create all these shapes and how you can think. But this was a first practice, and hope you enjoyed it and that you understood a little bit what I did. Please just play around with the notes to change your heart a little if you want to. And then I will just see you in the next session, so I say bye for now.